Hello everyone, and welcome back to Toy Soldier Tales podcast, episode 6. Today we're going to be talking about the Triple Crown Tournament, part Deux. For those who don't know, Mark and I and a couple of others from the Toy Soldier Tales team went to the Triple Crown Tournament in Derby. Was it what weekend gone, but the weekend before?
It was 2 weekends ago, wasn't it?
2 weekends ago. And we covered day 1 on Mark's channel, Spitfire Gaming, which comprised of the first 3 games. So if you want all the background, i.e. the composition of the tournament, the army list we took, and how, an analysis of how our first 3 games went, head over to Spitfire Gaming on YouTube, drop it a like, drop it a subscribe, and you'll be able to listen as to how our games went for day 1.
Very important. Only do that if you've got a spare 2 hours.
It is in depth.
This is traditional now on my channel. We just blow through the 2-hour barrier, leave it for dust.
Well, we're going to. I think let's talk about all at the beginning. So you're also very involved on Twitter, aren't you?
Well, I don't like to use the word celebrity or influencer because they're totally inappropriate for what I am. But I do have. What is that? What's this constant competition we have about followers?
There is no competition. You are by far further ahead than myself.
I have 438 followers, and basically all I do is post pictures of battles that I've had because that's what I like doing.
Well,
and apparently 438 people like to see them.
Well,
so that's fine.
I'm one of them, so
that's great. I'm happy to do it.
But yeah, if you want to listen, we're just going to be talking about day 2 today, how games 4 and 5 went. But if you want to listen to how games 1, 2, and 3 went and the arm list we're taking, then head across to Spitfire Gaming and drop it a like. Like,
subscribe. You can't be a member because I can't set it up. But who knows? You can get cash for it now. Apparently, you set up the membership. You can set a cash amount to get. I don't think it's going to pay my mortgage.
No.
So I'm not even going to try that. But it's an option.
What does membership get you?
I will give you a picture of a high elf.
Oh, wow!
On a yearly basis.
Honoured. I am honoured, sir. So it's just like that whole membership thing is just like additional content, is it?
I saw it on Mountain Miniature Gaming with Steve from Mini Wargaming.
Right, yeah.
Well, he set up his own membership thing. At the minute, there are no perks other than you get a little symbol next to your name when you're doing the chat. But apparently something's coming, so get in there first. Perhaps latch onto his success, or just get ignored. Could be either.
Maybe if I become a member of his, I can say plug my channel.
Well, I would take that deal.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
But I think as we are rapidly becoming the Siskel and Ebert, get that reference, anyone, of Warhammer podcasts, I'm happy to keep it as it is.
Yeah, I think we're doing all right. And then one day when I dip my toe into 40k, I maybe even be able to talk to you about that.
I played 40. This is off topic. I played 40k for the first time in 6 months. Yes, not yesterday. Last days off I had, and we got about 30 seconds into the game before we into the setup before we came across something that we didn't understand and had to look it up, and that set the tone for the rest of the game.
Oh, wow.
So
sounds very
if you're out of practice of 9th edition, apparently you can't just snap back into it like you can with fantasy. But
no,
that's just me.
Okay. Well, let's get on with the show. So
yes, moving on.
So do you want to summarise how your day 1 went? before?
Day one, a mixed bag, mostly good. My High Elf army played another High Elf army in game one, and I won 18-2. And then I played a Warriors of Chaos army, and I lost 5-15. And then I played a Wood Elf army, which I won 20-0. So I left day one feeling almost hubristically happy with how I'd done.
Hubristically? Wow.
Yeah, that'll come back. That may come back in what I'm about to describe.
That's the word for today, that hubristically. I think you're much too educated for my podcast. Right, so my summary, I was using Demons of Chaos. Game one, I played against an Ogre army, and Liam Howie's Ogre army, and I came up top with 17-3 in that game. Game two, I faced an old rival, only on the battlefield, not through painting, Callum Hyam and his Skaven, and I won that 20-0. And then going into game three, I played ex-Triple Crown champion Matt Pasfield and his Demons army, and I scraped a 13-7 win. So at the end of day one, I'd got 3 wins under my name and was feeling all right. Not hubristically.
Just all right.
I was feeling all right.
You had 3 wins, and it was just like par for the course. I had 2 wins, and I was thinking, I'm about to ace Triple Crown here.
Well, I was on 3 wins, and I was thinking to myself, I'm really tired, and I want to go to the pub for a drink. That was how I was feeling at the end of day 3. And the thing
Day
was,
3?
Day 1, sorry, game 3.
Wasn't that long?
God, it felt like it at some points. But no, it was a really good tournament. But no, 3 games in one day is knackering, and it's quite intense. So I was ready for a nice cold beverage at the pub following the end of the day. Going into the tournament, I had said to myself, I've taken an arguably weaker army than what I've taken previously. And so if I get the same result as last time, which was 3 wins, 1 loss and a draw, then I'd be pretty happy. So going into day 2, I was like, all I need is 1 draw, and I've at least matched what I got last time. So
I had no such pressure, having never been to Triple Crown before, so it was a constant threat of, I'm doing well, I've lost, I'm doing well again.
So going into game 4, what were you playing?
Well, we were talking about this on my channel. We sort of missed each other at the start of the tournament, but I ended up playing Matt Pasfield, who you played in, was it the second game?
The game before game 3.
Sorry, game 3. Yeah. So here's the setup, right? I just come off a 20-0 victory, thinking, oh, you're all right at this. We discussed on the night before, what was it? We were working out, I could either come up against demons or something else. I forget what it was, and I was saying, "Oh, this is how hubristic I was. Oh, I hope it's demons." And sure enough, I was drawn against the Nurgle Demons of Chaos list. So I'm thinking, this is easy. I've got the Banner of the World Dragon. They can't damage me. All I have to do is walk at them and slice them up, and everything will be fine. Now, reality interjected, and I was 20-0.
Wait, hold on. Let's just rewind. So you're
no, we've had enough of that.
You're playing an Ilarial Banner of the World Dragon White Lion Horde.
Yeah.
And you were 20-0 by demons.
Yeah, and the amount of stick I got off the Facebook group I'm on for that was, well, I could have reasonably quit the tournament there with justifiable excuse.
Just packed your army up and walked out.
Yeah, that won't do it all, will it? What happened? It was just great play by Matt. I set up in a line, so I had the white lions in the middle. I had the spearmen off to the left. I had the phoenixes on either side, I think. I did some cavalry on the one side with the idea of going after his. I think he had a skull cannon.
Yeah, he had one skull cannon.
Yeah, I had the bolt throwers on either side and the archers to the left of the spearmen. And he had his block of plague bearers with Epidemius in it at the back, and then he had sort of, I think he had three beasts of Nurgle.
So his army list was he had Epidemius as his general. He had a BSB on Palanquin. Nurgle Herald BSB on Palanquin with a greater gift and the locust that gives the whole unit regen. He had a unit of 12 bloodletters with full command. That was his core and his generals. His special was 2 units of 4 beasts of Nurgle, 1 unit of 5 beasts of Nurgle, and then going into his rare, he had 1 skull cannon, 1 unit of 4 rot flies, and 1 unit of 3 rot flies. So it's like really tough. And that composition was -6. And what was yours? -6 as well. So
-6 as well. So yeah,
even on the comp.
But what he did was he set up the Beast of Nurgle sort of in front of the Epidemius block, and then he had the rot flies on. They were sort of opposing the archers, and the demons of Khorne were behind a building. They never really entered into it, but they didn't need to. So I just moved up because I've never played demons before, so that was a genuinely new experience. I didn't know what Epidemius did, which I was to find out quite shortly later on. And I moved up, and what he did was, I think it was turn 1, he charged 2 units of the Beasts of Nurgle into the flanks of the White Lion Horde. Now, this is a massive mistake. Yeah.
So turn 1, you just marched.
I just went up. Yeah.
So game 4, was that the banners one? Was it?
Yes, it was. It was the
break
Blood and Glory. Yeah, break the fortitude. We don't automatically lose if you get broken. You just get an extra 500 points. I think it was.
Yeah. So you deployed 12 inches on, and then went. Well, I think it's 15 inches on, isn't it? And then
it's 15 on, 9 in. I think,
and then you went 10 inches straight forward.
Yeah. Well, what bad could happen?
Okay, fair enough. Well, he charged you in the flank, right?
He charged me in both flanks. Now, what I should have done, this is the benefit of hindsight, is put a frosty or something on one flank. Because if you get hit in the side by one, I could have done naval discipline, reformed that, and then dealt with that, turned around, dealt with the rest, and gone on to go for the Epidemius block. I didn't do that. I made a load of mistakes in this game. For example, he had to tell me you don't need to increase your ward saves because it's Banner of the World Dragon. You don't need to cast it. Why are you not casting Fiery Convocation every turn with 6 dice? And I thought, why are you not casting Fiery Convocation every turn with 6 dice?
All his attacks are magical.
Yeah. When you just... A concept just hasn't sank in. And I don't know whether it's because I've never fought them before. That bottle and a half of wine that I'd done the night before. But something wasn't clicking in my head with look at what you're facing and look what's in front of you. You're about to get hit in both sides by this. You're just walking into it, and why are you bothering to cast anything other than Fiery Convocation? So I got Fiery Convocation off once, I think, in the game before she miscast and lost the spell.
Brilliant.
I'm sure that's what happened. So the white lions are pinned. They can only make 4 attacks on each side against these Beasts of Nurgle, which isn't enough to do anything. I think in the first or second round of combat, the best I did, I think I got +7 combat res, and he rolled really low for his. So I think he was on a 3. He was on leadership 3, something like that, and he rolled really low for both leadership tests on the demons. So I was thinking, well, there's a way out of this. If I win, if he can roll, if I'm lucky enough that he rolls high, they'll fade out, and I can focus on the other ones and reform and get out. That didn't happen, and it's just like when you're pinned and you're not making many attacks, all you've got is the static res, which is slowly getting ground out of the unit, because they do D6. Is it D6 strength 5 attacks?
No, they do D6 plus 1 poison attacks.
Poison
They're
attacks.
strength 4 base, but as soon as he gets to 7 wounds with Epidemius, they're going to be strength 5.
Yeah. So meanwhile, his rotflies hit my archers and spearmen, I think, and that's where he's saying, "Oh, the tally's going up." And I was like,
Yeah,
tally? What is this tally you speak of? And then he said, "Oh yeah, it's this month it's +1 toughness. At this amount, it's is it poison on a 5
No,
up?
it's 7. It's +1 strength. At 14,
strength.
it's +1 toughness.
Toughness.
And 21, it's
killing blow or reroll wards.
It's killing blow, and then at 28, it's reroll ward saves.
So in one turn, he went from nothing to the full amount.
No.
So that was this is going interesting. The mild success that the Reavers tied up the cannon for a turn, but it hadn't done anything. It failed to wound Phoenix, and I think the other one made its ward save or something like that. So this has all happened. The photos that I took just show right, just funnel more stuff into it. So the Phoenixes went in, and then he's the beasts of Nurgle do not suffer flank and rear charging negative combat res. Well, that's great, because now I'm completely deployed on everything and I've got nothing else to use, and now it's tied up forever in this never-ending combat. So that keeps going on. So they get heroic killing blow, and one of them targets Lariel. I think he made 3. I think he made 3 killing blow wounds on her. No, he didn't. He made 1. He made 1 killing blow and 2 non-killing blow attacks. And that's Fan of the World Dragon. Right, I'll make the killing blow one first, which when you say something, you think this isn't gonna roll it, and it's a 1. So Alariel is now dead. She can't cast. I think maybe she didn't miscast. Maybe it was that she was just dead. So she now can't cast Fiery Convocation at Epidemius' unit, because when she did fire it off, it killed maybe I think 10 or 11 Plague Bearers. Meanwhile, he doesn't have any magic, but he's rolling on the Chaos. Was it what Realm of Chaos table, whatever it is?
Yeah.
After the Phoenixes have charged in, he rolled a double 6, so set up some Plague Bearers behind the Phoenix. So then they go in the next turn to get this recharge bonus. Yeah. So I think there is actually no way out of this. So Alariel dies, the Banner Bearer dies in the BSB dies in the same circumstances. He gets killing blowed. At that point, just everything that they break on a stubborn 8. I roll a 9. They break. He rolls to pursue, and they catch the White Lions. So they're all dead. And the Phoenix had gone previously, and that was chopped up as well. So all I had left was, I don't know, 5 Shadow Warriors and a Phoenix, which was about to die. So at that point, I just said, I concede.
No.
So it was just really, really good play, making use of obvious mistakes that I'd made. But it was. Have you ever, the Battle of Cannae?
Yeah.
If you know your ancient Roman history, so the Roman Republic gets its biggest consular army ever, and the theory is just put them all in a big block and push them at Hannibal, and everything will be fine. So I was thinking afterwards that you've just made the same mistake that they did Because Hannibal did the same thing in that he makes a box for them and hits them in the side so they can't. Their numbers don't really mean anything, and just pins them and destroys them that way. So, well, you followed in the history of Roman consuls.
Well, you're right. You definitely fell for that trap, basically, on how you described it. I was thinking more along the lines of Star Wars, where Luke says to the Emperor, "It's like your overconfidence is your weakness." And he's like, "Your faith in your friends is yours." You know, like that was just like that just sums up the game, I think.
Yeah, it was. I learned a lot, though. I mean, taking things out of it. I mean, he's a great player, and he's a really nice fella. That even though it was happening, he was like, "Yeah, this is going badly for you, but," and like, no, it really is. But now I know what Epidemius does. I know what not to do.
Beast and Urgo are tough, aren't they?
Beast, I don't like them.
It's why they're -1 comp per unit.
That's not enough.
Well, it's -1 comp per unit, and then if you take 6 or more in one unit, it's an additional -1. So it's -3. He gets off that.
Yeah, I think it was the mistake of, I don't know. Moving them up was a bad idea. Moving them up within the range of 2 flank charges was a really bad idea.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to blame the dice and say, well, he should have rolled an average for, should have rolled 11 for the break tests when I had 7 combat rares. You can't rely on that. That's just wishful thinking and luck.
But if you go back to your Roman analogy, at the end of the day, the Romans still win. So,
well, as the law says, there's exactly this amount of high elves that required to fit the story. So they were back in the next game. Oh yeah, it got better. What's that meme of I thought you died, I did, but I lived.
Well, like, in those like end times things, it's just like the high elves, they're like a dying race and their numbers are dwindling. Yet how many battles do they have over that end time series where they just massacre each other? It's just like, wait, hold on a second, I thought you guys had no people left.
If you read these
massive armies.
If you read all the battles of Calidor and Tethys and all that, they fight each other till then. The Dark Elves fight till both sides are obliterated. There's nobody left, and yet they've still got armies left to have a go later.
Matt that's a good player, isn't he? So
he came second. So, but I was hoping that he would come first. Not to give any spoilers about who did come first, because then I could say, well, yeah, I lost, but that guy went on to win the tournament. So what do you expect?
Yeah.
But even that didn't happen.
No. Well. Yeah. But hats off to Matt. He's a very good player, and as we said before, he's an ex-Triple Crown winner. So, and he used that army, I think, when he won. So he knows what he's doing. So, I wouldn't feel too badly about that game. Other than the fact that you were playing Ilarial White Lion and Battle of the World Dragon. I
don't feel badly. It was a good experience, and I hope I wasn't too. Everyone says, "Oh yeah, I don't mind," and I say it, but I can tell sometimes when I'm getting the steam is rising inside. Come on! It's more annoyed at myself though.
No. I've got no one to be angry at but myself.
I went in with the assumption that Ban of the World Dragon, just be fine. You don't have to worry about anything. Apparently you do.
There you go.
It is not the get out of jail free card that you might think against demons.
Well,
I say movement phase, deployment. It's all rather important.
Yeah. And the good thing about it as well is it shows that no Death Star is undefeatable.
No.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a Super Death Star that beat it. It was
Beast
normal. yeah, it was normal application of the rules. So
Yeah, there's hope, folks. There's hope.
so all you Beastmen and Tim King's players out there,
Normal application of the rules will win you games.
yeah,
And a lot of luck.
there's no reason why you can't beat the top-rated Death Star armies with your normal stuff.
Well, going into my game 4, I played Matt Passfield and his Demons in game 3, and it was one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life. And at the end of day 3, I was like, please don't make me play Demons again, Mr. Triple Crown people. Please, I can't go through that again. Please don't let me. So game 4, I was playing Dan Green and his Demons.
Well, they Nurgle.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a Highlander demon army with a unit from each god in it.
Ooh.
It was a
So the chaos table becomes a bit more weird then, doesn't it?
Oh, it was there was a lot of weird things happening in this game. And it was 0 comp his army. So his army comprised of Kairos, which is -4, just right off the bat for Kairos. For those who don't know, Kairos is he's a Lord of Change, but he's slightly weaker, and and he only has 1 attack, and he's initiative 1, right? But he has a 4 up ward save, unlike other Lord of Changes that only have a 5 up. He can re-roll any 1 dice per turn, so he can re-roll any 1 dice in his turn and in your turn. And the best thing about him is he gets to pick which spells he wants from the laws of magic at the start of the game. It's like one head knows 4 of the laws and laws each, and the other head knows 4 of the laws and 4 of the laws and laws each. Each head knows all the spells from the laws each, but then from the other 4 laws you pick your spells. So it's like each head is a level 4 wizard, and you can only use 1 head per turn. But it means that you have 15 spells. You get the 7 from Laura's each, and then you pick the other 8 each game. You don't have to roll for them, you pick. So,
that's like Teclis's ability, isn't it?
But better.
But better, because he knows 9 laws.
He knows 9 laws of magic.
Which is appropriate for Zinj.
Yeah, it is. Based upon some of the backstory we've spoken about in the past, on your podcast, Spitfire Gaming,
available below.
So that's why Kairos is a mighty -4. He is really strong. Arguably one of the best or versatile wizards in the game. He had no BSB in his army. But he had a Herald of Sinesh and a Herald of Khorne. The Herald of Sinesh had the Always Strikes First Locus ability, so she went into a big unit of Demonettes, so they had Always Strikes First. And then the Khorne Herald had the Frenzy Loki, and he went in a big unit of Bloodletters, and he get the whole unit Frenzy. He then had a small unit of Horrors, 3 Screamers, 4 Rotflies, and a Zinch Chariot. I think that's it.
Are BSBs as important for demons or not?
No, they're not. I think they only work, without looking at the Codex Army Book, whatever you want to call it, I think they only work for the god of the same thing. So it works in Matt's and my army because we have a lot of Nurgle. But in Dan's army, if you put it on, let's say, the Herald of Khorne, it would only work on the Bloodletters. Oh, I forgot he also had a Skull Cannon as well. It would only work on the Bloodletters and the Skull Cannon, and if you put it on the Demonettes, it would only work on the Demonettes, that kind of thing. So it's not important. And it can also be bad as well, because I think you have to re-roll your failed BSB chests, and that can really hurt. Because if you got like a low roll but failed, and it could be worse. So, but I'd have to check that out. But yeah, it can be bad having a BSB. So not important. But he had lots of banners. So he had Kairos was 2, and then he had 1, 2, 3, 4 banners. So he had a fortitude of 6. Yeah, so going into this game, he was doing pretty well. So I was like, right, he's got a skull cannon. I'm gonna hide Epidemius behind this building.
I've heard that before.
You may have heard that before, but I was like, I can't afford for him to get sniped, so he's gonna go hide behind this building. And the rest of my army deployed. The main thing I was worried about was Kairos flying over my lines, getting behind me, or getting to the side of me and casting like a purple sun or something like that. But Dan didn't take purple sun, which is interesting choice. He took his nuke spells were Final Trans and Pit of Shades. Now he didn't take purple sun, and his reasoning behind this is if he casts purple sun, he gets it off, right? But if he rolls a misfire on the purple sun, and Kairos has only got initiative of 1, Kairos died. So
that's an issue.
So if he gets the spell off and rolls a misfire, Kairos is probably gonna die. But the odds of rolling misfire are like 1 in 6, and then the odds of and then he's only got like a 1 in 6 chance of passing, But he's like, if I roll a misfire, Kairos is dead, and the whole army's gonna fucking suffer. So it's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. And you can tell it's happened to him in the past, and that's why he just doesn't take it. He's like, I've got Pit of Shades, I've got Final Trans. If that's not good enough, then I'm doing something wrong at the core of things, yeah? And so I was like, well, I can't afford for Kairos to fly over me or get in a position. So the way I played it was I deployed wide, and I kept my Rotflies in reserve. Not reserve as in off the board, but behind my lines. Because I basically created like a safety net with them. So there was no point where Kairos could safely fly over my army and get to so as my army kept pushing forward, my front line, Kairos was getting pushed further and further away into this back corner, which also meant that he was further away from Epidemius. But as Kairos is getting pushed further and further into this back corner, this unit of Rotflies, which I think only made combat like once in the game, it just meant that they kept him on the back foot, just their presence being there. So, but he got turn 1. He failed to do anything with his skull cannon, and Kairos flew up and went, right, I'm going to Final Trans your big unit, 41 Plague Bearers with my Herald BSB in it. And he killed, I think, between 16 and 20 Plague Bearers off that first spell. So,
that's quite a lot, considering you need a 5 to do it.
Yeah, he rolled he rolled really well. And he killed the champion in like another 16, so like 17 or 18, something like that. So my unit's like looking quite, it's a bit depleted. And then, but I was like, right, I still have to just keep going. And it also meant like a load of things were stupid. So I had like a unit of Furies that then failed their stupidity test, and I like stopped some of my units from moving. And I was just like, oh, stupidity. But in either way, I marched right across the board, and my unit of my Beast of Nurgle went into his bloodletters, and because something I learned was you can't take Banner of Eternal Flame on bloodletters or plague bearers. Well, you can, but it just don't work. And the reason it don't work is because they've both got magical weapons, and magical weapons doesn't work with Banner of Eternal Flame.
Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, and I'd learned that earlier. And the thing was, like, when I was submitting my army list, like literally 15 minutes, like half an hour, 15 minutes before I submitted my army list, I had Banner of Eternal Flame on my Plague Bearers. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that out. I'm going to put Banner of Swiftness on my Plague Bearers, and I'm going to put Banner of Eternal Flame on my Rotflies. And I
So
said,
just based on that, so if I put Banner of the Eternal Flame on the White Lion Horde with Alariel, that wouldn't work.
well, I don't know because they don't have magical weapons. Alariel gives them magical attacks.
Oh, I see.
Right. And
Right.
if you put the Banner of Eternal Flame on Demonettes, they have magical attacks, and it's fine. I think it's the magical weapons. So I was talking with a few people about this. Like, so say for example, you've got Grimgore in a unit of Black Orcs, yeah? If you put Banner
Yeah.
of Eternal Flame on the Black Orcs, the Banner of Eternal Flame will work on the Black Orcs. It won't work on Grimgore because he's got a magical weapon.
I never noticed that in the rules.
I've never noticed that. And to be fair, I've played against people and people have never called me up, but that got called up in one of the games. It was judged. That was the thing. Like, fine. I'm glad I didn't put Banner of Eternal Flame on my Plague Bearers because it would have been useless. But
It's a happy convenience there.
yeah, it was. I was like, I was like, wow, I'm really glad I switched that, last minute. But what it means for the Rotflies is it means that the Steeds get Banner of Eternal Flame. That's fair enough. They're the ones that are pumping out 3 strength 5 attacks each. But the guys on top don't get it because they've got magical swords. But that meant that I knew that his unit had Frenzy, his unit of Bloodletters, but it also meant that because Bloodletters have got magical swords, like magical weapons, that's what gives them the killing blow, is their magical weapon. I was like, right, well, I'll charge them with my Beast of Nurgle because I'm going to get my regen. And over time, they're only toughness 3. Over time, I'm going to chew through that unit. And my big block went into his Demonettes. And so I was like, right, okay, this is cool. I had a bit of difficulty against Demonettes. One, my block had really suffered. I only had like I'd only had like 50% of the unit that made it in against Demonettes. And then he got Wizard's Wild Form on the Demonettes, so all of a sudden they're always strikes first, hitting on 4s, re-rolling to wound, wounding on 4s. And then I was like, lots of attacks, so by the time I finished fighting the Demonettes, my Plague Bearer block had maybe 10 guys less than maybe 7 guys left and my BSB. And when I killed the Demonettes, I decided to reform and shrink the unit down here. The Plague, my Great Unclean one really suffered in the game. What happened was I rolled on the chart to see what demonic gift he got, and I rolled the 2 up ward save from the first wound suffered in the battle. So I was like, you know what? He's toughness 7. The only thing that's going to wound him early on is the cannon, and I'll get a 2 up ward save against that. So you know what? I'll keep that. So I kept that, and then I moved forward with him because I was like, yeah, I'll get him into combat, and then he can't be shot. And he flew over the top of my Great Unclean one with his Screamers, and I was like, it's only going to be strength 4 attacks. And he did 3 wounds to my Great Unclean one with his strength 4 attacks. And I was like, oh crap, well, the first one I ignore on a 2-up, rolled a 1. I was like, great. and then 2 saves of 5, both fail. So I'm like, right, that unit of 3 Screamers has just flown over and done 3 wounds to my Great Unclean one. So he's now on like 50% HP. I was like, damn it. Right, get into combat, got into combat. And he's like, oh, I'm going to charge my Skull Cannon into your Great Unclean one. And I was like, okay. And I was thinking, well, yeah, he's going to get D6 attacks, but he's on 6s to wound, so it's like not too bad, and then I'll get to hit his guys and be fine. So he runs in, gets 5 impact hits, does 3 wounds and kills him.
I shouldn't laugh.
And I was just like, right, okay, fair enough. That's not great. Soul Grinder had run into his unit of horrors. I'm thinking, yeah, I get 4 attacks a turn, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, and then I get D6 stomps a turn, wounding on 2s. I think I lost combat the first round of combat. But he stayed around. So the whole thing wasn't going well. But I was able to grind down the blood letters from Beast of Nurgle over the game. As I said, my rock flies were hanging in the back, which kept Kairos away from doing what he needed to do, and he ended up trying to cast a lot of buff spells most of the time because all his units were like locked in combat. The Soul Grinder eventually got through the horrors. As I said, my Great Unclean One died to his Skull Cannon. And what happened in the centre after that is his unit of Rotflies had now got all the buffs from Epidemius, because by that point I'd reached the 28 wounds. So he had this really...
Oh, yeah, he affects everyone, as we were talking on a previous episode.
Yeah, he affects all demons of Nurgle, friend and foe. And so they charged into my small unit of Plague Bearers at this point. And I was thinking, yeah, that's really going to hurt. And he cast the Law of Light spell that gives him weapon skill 10, initiative 10.
Not speed of light, is it?
It's something like that, yeah. Time warp or something, like, I don't know.
Whereas time warp increases your attacks and your movement.
Oh well, he was weapon.
I think it might be speed of light actually.
Right. Well, he was weapon skill 10, right? And I was like, well, that thing makes things really awkward because it makes it really hard for me to hit you. But luckily, if I hit you, I'm poisoning you anyway because I've got poison. And what happened was he ground down the unit, and I was able to pick off a Rotfly or so. And in the next turn, I charged my Beast of Nurgle into the flank of the Rotflies. And how it turned out was, earlier on in the first turn, he had killed the champion in my unit through the nuke spell, yeah? The one that turns him into golden statues. So he specifically killed the champion, yeah? He's dead. But that means that the banner bearer of my unit was the last model to be removed, not the champion. Which meant that my banner bearer was left standing. He was the only model left in my plague bearer unit with the BSB. And it meant that I won combat by 1. If he hadn't have killed my champion, my banner bearer wouldn't have been there, and it would have been a drawn combat. Well, actually, he would have won combat because he had a musician or something, you know? But anyway, the fact that he killed my champion turn 1 meant that I won combat in this really important combat. And he failed his break test and the unit popped, which is extremely lucky for me. And so I'd got the center, and I'm a BSB and 1 plague bearer left in this unit. And then what happened on the left was I couldn't catch his screamers anymore, so I ignored them. He tried to cast Pit of Shades on the Rotflies, and I was thinking to myself, this was the same. This was he had a dice, and he was either going to cast Pit of Shades or some kind of spell to buff the Rotflies. And I was like, if he Pit of Shades the Rotflies with the small template, he's only going to kill maximum of 3, which means there's going to be 1 left. I'm okay with that. But if he gets the buff spell on the Rotflies, that's really bad for me. Yeah. So I let him cast Pit of Shades. I said, yeah, you can have that. He cast it. He didn't miscast. He cast it normally. I let him have it. And luckily for me, he scattered off. And I was like, great. And then he rolled for his buff spell, and I dispelled those buff spell. And that's why I was able to go on to win that combat. So I couldn't catch his screamers, but I wasn't worried about it. the Tzeentch chariot had come all the way round to try and kill Epidemius with grape shot, and was just like chasing Epidemius, trying to grape shot him. Grape shot him. And what happened towards the end of the game was the Screamers was just like, I'm going to hang away. In my last turn of the game, I charged Epidemius, who I think was on 1 wound, into his chariot that was chasing him. My Soul Grinder charged his cannon, and Kairos was well away. I was nowhere near him. And Epidemius ran into combat. Didn't, I think, caused 1 wound. Didn't cause it. Might have caused 1 wound, but didn't kill the chariot. The chariot didn't kill him back. And I won combat because I charged. And he rolled his break test and blew up his chariot. And I was like, wow, that was lucky. And then on the other side, the Soul Grinder had charged in, done 1 wound. His chariot did no wounds back. It's from his skull cannon, sorry. And I won combat by 2, and he rolled his finger and failed his break test, and that meant that died as well. So in the last turn, I was able to like clean up these chariots and things like that. And the fact that, you know, I still had my 1 Plague Bearer left from my unit was massive. So that game ended 15-5 to me. But it was a very close game. And
it sounds like it sounds like a closer game the way you've described it than what the score would suggest.
Exactly. You know, like if I hadn't have got those 2 things in the last turn, that would have maybe made like that would have made it maybe a 14-6. You know, if he'd got my last Plague Bearer, then you're looking more like a 13-7 or a 12-8. But it's just the way things turned out, you know, in the last few turns. You know, it's crazy. Don't get me wrong, I think his luck peaked really early on with, you know, wiping out big swaths of my unit and
but not the whole unit.
No, but he wiped out a lot of it, and then which obviously affects its fighting capability, and he'd kill my Great Unclean One through sheer luck. But you know, my luck was able to come in at the end of the game, and I had to grind. I had to grind that game out, and there was moments where, you know, Dan, I actually voted for best sportsman because he was really patient with me, and he knew that the dice weren't going, you know, in my favor early on. And there was moments where I just needed to sit quietly for a few minutes and just think about what am I going to do? You know, what charge reaction am I going to make? How I'm going to position my units? Am I going to block this? Am I going to charge this? How much should I wheel this? You know, is charging at this point really the right thing? And am I going to dispel this, or should I hold my dice for another spell? And there was like 3 or 4 times where I just had to stop because there's a lot of noise going on at these tournaments, and there's a lot of pressure, and you know the guy's saying, "Oh, you've only got half an hour of the game left," and so on and so forth. And but
I think coal miners have got it difficult. They should try going to Triple Crown.
Well, you know, Dan was a good player, and he played his army well. And I needed time to think, how am I going to grind out this? How am I going to grind? How am I going to get the points? How am I going to conserve points? And he allowed me the time. He was very patient with me, and you know, he was a true gentleman. So you know, if you're listening, thank you very much, and you know, I look forward to playing you again in the future. So that was good for me. Nice 15-5 win going into the last game in the tournament.
That was yeah, no, it wasn't your lowest score. So not that I'm rubbing this in.
No, 13-7.
13-7. Yeah.
So it was it was tough. It was a tough game.
What would you have done if you were drawn against demons for game 5?
Cried. Yeah, because believe it or not, game 3 against Matt, that was my first Demons versus Demons game ever. And it was very complicated, very intense. And I was like, I don't want to play Demons again. I can't go through that level of intensity again. And again, it was really tough. 2 tough players, 2 tough games, but I managed to, pull through on each of them. So, but that's enough of me rabbiting on about my game 4. Going into the last game, what table were you on?
Let's have a think. I was still on the upper tier, just. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I was on table 8. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. So that 8 or 9. In fact, I think 8 was the middle one. I think I was on that one because Will with these lizard men was on my left, and Adam with these dark elves was on the right, I think. Possibly. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he played Tim.
Dark Elves versus Dark Elves.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So now, in fact, I messaged. I said in the previous episode on another podcast that I messaged. I played the Wood Elves, Chris Hale's Wood Elves. So I messaged him after that. So just to let you know, I've just been 20-0. So and that hubris from yesterday is gone. There's that word again. So anyway, I got drawn against Simon Hughes' Dwarfs, and I thought, well, this is a great way to end because we've met Simon the night before in the when we all went out to the all you can eat.
Nice. Yeah, he was a really nice guy. He was
really nice guy, really sociable, and he'd had this old army of dwarfs. Like I've got photos of the photos on the Instagram and stuff. Really well painted, really nice. And I hadn't seen those because they're really old model metal dwarfs, and it was so I was thinking, well, it's fitting that it ends with high elves versus dwarfs. I'm on the back foot a bit.
War of the Beards is one of your favourite things.
Exactly. It's how it should end. It's only natural that it should come to this point. And by all accounts, when I was speaking to him, he'd done really well because I think it was his first tournament, and he'd just gone up and up and up. So he was on the up, and I was on the down. So we just met at table 7. What does it say? Table 7. So I just thought, well, you just have to see what you can do. You'll have to enjoy it. Whatever happens, I've had a great time, as people on Bullseye used to say. There's a dated reference. So I thought, whatever, I'll play it. I'll enjoy it. I'll try to win. If not, it doesn't really matter, does it? I've got 2 wins. I'll help you out with Triple Crown. So it was just pure battle line at the last one. I think there wasn't anything gimmicky about it. So he puts his army out, and I think, oh, this is interesting. It's a Slayer list. So he had 2 blocks of Slayers, which I think were maybe 15 or 20 strong. I'm trying to see on the photos that I had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so 20 units, 20 Slayers, and he had 2 very deep units of Dwarf Warriors, and he had an very old-fashioned gyrocopter. So that's interesting. It's quite interesting to go without it. And then he had this box to the side where he brought out all the artillery. I thought, there it is.
I noticed him do that a couple of times, and I was like, oh, these dwarves are really nice. And I went, where's your artillery? And he went, it's in this box. I keep it hidden. I'm like, oh, yeah, fair enough.
So I was trying to think, like, on deployment, like, I know what's in that box. No dwarf army is coming here without artillery. So I was trying to sort of like hold off my deployment and put things that weren't so important. Then eventually had to put all 9. It's either 7 or 9 artillery pieces out. So he puts. So I do the standard line because I'm not very creative in deployment. So it's just the white lines in the middle, as you might imagine, with the spearmen on to the left. So I wait to see where he try to hold on as long as possible to see where he's put his artillery. So he spreads it just to make it more complicated. So he puts on my right hand side, on the opposite side of the table, is a hill. So we roll off and was just happy to keep sides. Yeah, that's a hill. So yeah, that's where the artillery's going. So he puts a cannon and a bolt thrower on the hill. He puts a flame cannon near the front by his blocks of warriors. He's then got what they're called, not a volley gun, organ gun. He's also got an organ gun, another bolt thrower, and a catapult on my left-hand side. So at this point, I'm thinking, well, they're all spread out, so you're gonna have to. It's not ideally, so you're gonna have to split going after them, and just hope one side follows it. So I put one Phoenix on one side to try and get to the bolt thrower and the organ gun, and on the other side I put all the fast cavalry and the skirmishers, to the point that one of them is going to get. Hopefully, one of them is going to get into combat before they get shot off the board. So roll off like turn one. Turn one's going to be incredibly important, and he gets turn one. So now it's just a question of can I get into combat before everything important is shot off the board?
Sounds a bit like 40k.
Yeah, but better. It's more tactical. So I think in the first turn the cannons don't do anything, or they might have taken some wounds off Phoenix. So the Phoenix moves up. He can't charge on turn one because he loses 20 up with the idea that he'll charge the next turn. The Reavers, two sets of Reavers and the Shadow Warriors sort of come round the back to set up for a charge on the next turn to get into the bolt thrower. They put the bolt thrower in front of the cannon to sort of protect it, because what's more use of? Clearly, it's the cannon. As they're coming round, what does he shoot? Does he shoot the? He shoots the Reavers, I think. No, he can't. Something happens where he might have. In fact, yeah, I think he might have lobbed a rock at them, and 3 of them die, and they panic. So I'm not very good at leadership tests, I've said before. So the fact that I passed all I know when that happened, you've made a huge mistake here. So they turn and run. So right, that's great. I've got one less unit to deal with all this artillery. But fortunately, the next turn, the Reavers and the Shadow Warriors get into combat. But because they're only strength 4, Dwarves are toughness 4, they don't kill all the crew, so they're held there, which gives the cannon another shot. His turn 2, he doesn't. I think he just sort of redirects the Slayers to move against the other Phoenix, which I've moved up to the flank to sort of threaten to see deciding really what I want to point it at while the White Lion Horde moves up. I don't really do much in the way of offensive magic. It's all the minor buffs and stuff just to get the ward save up. On his turn 2, he shoots the Phoenix dead on the left hand side. So now I can't get to the organ gun and I can't get to the second bolt thrower. So I'm just going to have to put up with that. He shoots into because they've all got runes, and therefore the Ban of the World Dragon will come into effect because they're all counted as magical attacks. He shoots the Spearman, and he also decides to charge the Spearman with, I think it was one of his units of warriors. The Phoenix goes into the unit of Slayers. I'd forgotten about their death blow rule, which was
nice.
Yeah, so even though the Phoenix is chewing through Slayers because they don't wear armor, it doesn't matter because they're all getting attacks back. So I'm
on 4s or something.
so I didn't realize that was the case. So I'm losing wounds on the Phoenix, but I'm topping them back up with Apotheosis.
Do you think?
So
Do you think this is another case of not enough practice against dwarves?
Yes and no, because when I first started playing fantasy, the guy who played he was the only one I knew who played. He was a dwarf player, so I thought
Right, okay.
that he didn't really use Slayers, but I knew what I needed to do against the artillery. And White Lions versus Dwarfs, they're strong enough to go through them. Whereas like Phoenix Guard are not, because of that toughness 4. So turns 1, 2, and 3, I'm just taking losses. I've lost to Phoenix. Another Phoenix is tied up in combat. My unit of spearmen break, but they don't get run down. So they rally in the next turn. I'll decide because because of the way he's positioned it, I would have to go the White Lions if they were to charge against the big unit of the big unit of Dwarf Warriors with the characters in, where the points are. He positioned them that they were exactly the same distance apart, so I couldn't charge one without hitting the other. And at that point, I thought I don't want to get them bogged down because they were 5 wide by about 8 to 10 deep, both of them. So I don't really want to get bogged down in this just yet. So I point them at the Slayers, and they kill the Slayers, no problem, and then reform. And he's sort of moving back and back with his second warrior unit. The other warrior units come forward to take on the spearmen, broke them. They ran away, rallied, and turned around. At that point, then the White Lions have turned around again and hit them in the side, and that's probably the most devastating the White Lions were in the tournament, because they just blended the big unit. That broke. They ran after them.
It's the striking first, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s.
Yeah, it's so good when they get in, and even if they've got, because they've hit them in the side, there's no parry. Their armor's useless against strength 3 anyway. It just dissolved them. So because the Phoenix has gone in as well with the White Lions on the flank, so that was like a weird sort of charge I did there. So I thought I'll let the Phoenix can overrun. So the Phoenix overrun, caught the unit, and went into the side of another block of Slayers. The White Lions reformed, and he tried to charge a unit of Shadow Warriors off the side with his furthest back unit, and he didn't make the charge, which sort of curved him round enough to mean that the White Lions were now pointing at his flank again for the other unit, which was unlucky, really. So the White Lions then go into the flank of that unit, and the same thing happens again. So by the end, he's got, I think I didn't destroy all the Slayers. I was short on that, but he's lost all of his.
Joke?
No, I'm very humorless when it comes to dwarfs. They're a bitter enemy. Yeah, so the Slayers do survive. One unit of Slayers survives. Some of the artillery survives, but at this point it's irrelevant because everything's really fighting. So at the end, it was just this massive melee in the middle, which is where the White Lions are great at, because they've got the 3 at ward save, they're not taking any damage, and they're dishing out horrendous amounts of strength 6 attacks. So I got both of these big units with the characters in, like I think he had a Rune Lord, Rune Smith, BSB. So with the BSB had gone, like, right, there's no rerolls now, even though dwarf high leadership. Turn around, destroy the other unit. He kills the Reavers in the end with the artillery. He shot the bolt throwers off the board with his cannon. He managed to kill all but 2 of the archers, which is unfortunate, really, because I think I still got the points for them in the end, because I think there was still 2 left. And then I won 15-5. But it's like so typical of games against dwarfs in that turns 1 to 3. I was really concerned that you shoot the 2 phoenixes, you kill the bolt throwers, and you just fire shots into the support units. You don't really have to worry too much about the White Lions because unsupported, even though they've got magical resistance to magical attacks, there's only so much one unit can do. Whereas the problem with dwarfs that I've always found with this sort of thing with using high elves is the kill your monsters with the cannons. He's got a lot of template weaponry that could kill the spearmen and go for the archers, and you just have to point the organ gun in the direction of shadow warriors or reavers, and they just die. So turns 1 to 3 were quite nerve wracking because I need to get everything up and into combat as soon as possible, or all of this is going to die. And then turn 4 and 5 is when it turned, and I did get them in. And then you could just sort of dictate it because once you destroyed one unit, you can just reform it and point it at the next one. And there's not really much you can do once you get that back line.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds like it went overall. Obviously with a 15-5, but overall things tended to go your way then.
Yes, but it was a really good game, and it was a really good one to end on, because it's standard dwarfs, isn't it? You're gonna get shot, and it's just whether you can get there with enough of your stuff intact by the time, by turn 3 is about the time you can start getting into combat. But it's a shout because. Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, just run them around the side into the cannons, and it'll be fine. But no, Phoenix gets killed. One unit panics off the board. Oh, nearly does, and has to turn around. So if those two things one didn't work, if the other hadn't worked, then there's nothing to stop this army just shelling everything I've got until it can get into combat, which you would obviously avoid as much as possible. So I like playing dwarfs. It's different kind of challenge.
Yeah,
because it's not just they are good at melee, but they're not just it's not just fight two infantry blocks against each other. You've got a artillery castle sort of to work out how to get around.
Yeah.
So it was a really good game. Really enjoyed it. Really, really nice opponent, even though he's playing dwarfs. Just win one for Calidor II.
Well, he didn't win enough on his own, so.
Well, it's badly maligned in history.
So where did that put you overall then?
Well, this is slightly a bone of contention because on tournament points, I am joint 11th with Adam, who I mentioned before, the Dark Elf rival. But he got more total victory points, so I'm either 11th or 12th. And I'm going to say 11th because it's tournament points.
No, you're 12th because you got more.
Okay.
Sorry, mate.
Sue me, Triple Crown. But we were just looking at the results afterwards, and his results were almost a mirror image of mine. So
in his last game against Tim, then he won like 15-5. Then did he?
Let's have a look. That's me. That's not him. He got 14 points in his last game, and I got 15.
Oh wow!
We were both 20-0'd in game 4. We both 20-0'd our opponent in game 3. He got he 20-0'd his opponent, and I got 5-15 in game 2, and I 18-2'd my opponent in game 1, and he got 15-5, and he's at -7, and now at -6. So we got
where that 1 point.
Yeah. So we got exactly 77 points each.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was spooky, that.
Well, maybe next time you guys can face off against each other.
Well, we said it's at Cardiff they're going to have to put a velvet roped off area for us to resolve this grudge.
This is where he comes in and he shouts to you across the room and it's like, Calidor II was a fraud.
Well, you say that, but I can reveal to you that before he left, he said, "Well, I might bring high elves."
I think there's a lot of people going to be bringing high elves. It's
so I said, "You've repented of your evil ways."
It's like Callum, I think, is going to be taking high elves to the next one, and Matt Pasfield, he was saying that he's going to possibly bring high elves to the next one. So it's just like, that's a lot of high elves going to be coming to the next one. So,
yeah, but if you fly by night, sometimes you play high elves, sometimes you don't. Well, you're more like the colonists who, they weren't so loyal to the Phoenix King that they came back to Ulthuan. I'm the loyalists who came back and fought off the Dark Elf invasion. It's high elves or nothing.
Well, but good result overall, seeing as it's your first Triple Crown, and you got to say that the level of player, there is quite tough. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to do as well as I did. I was aiming for something around mid-table, which is what I've always done in previous tournaments. But how did your final game go?
So, my game 5 was a real grudge match. So, going into game 5, I was joint first on 65 out of 80 points? 65 out of 80 points for games. And James Irwin, who's also been on the podcast and on the Battle Report several times, was also joint first with me on 65 points with his Orcs and Goblins army. And so we drew each
Speaking of artillery.
Yeah, so we drew each other in the final game, table 1. Whoever wins this game, he's going to win the tournament. Yeah. And I said to James prior to the tournament, I really didn't want to play it. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, because of his army list, which I'd helped him come up with. But he is the Orc and Goblin mastermind. But we'd obviously discussed it several times, and I've obviously played him so much. We're best mates from university, and he's been on the channel load. So,
isn't it funny though how we both ended up with like a grudge match at the end of the tournament?
Well, it was but the thing was as well is I was feeling a bit sentimental, and I said to the organizers, I was like, all right, guys, you know that James and I play each other all the time. You know that we've both helped each other prep for this tournament. You know that we've both helped each other design our army lists, and I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be the person who makes James lose, right? And I don't think James wants to be the person to make me lose. That's not true. James wanted to destroy me, right? But I was like, I don't want to be in that situation, yeah? And they were like, right, we'll have a look at it. The thing is that the guys on table 2 was Dan Green, who I'd just played, and Matt Pasfield, who I'd played in game 3.
So demons and demons.
So I couldn't play either of them, so the only person I could play was James, and it was like, right, which just mean on the top 2 tables in the last game there was 3 demon armies, very different demon armies, I would argue, but 3 demon armies in the top 4 armies in the last game. It shows how strong they are.
Hint for next year.
But we were playing a game. It was Battle Line, and James hardly talked to me in the break between game 4 and game 5, and I was like, what's going on? And I was downstairs, because I like to get away from the table I've just played on, and the player, I want to give them space, and I want to go outside, have a bit of fresh air and stuff. And James,
while they sweep up the remnants of their army.
Well, James, when he was like studying the board, and he was like thinking, where, he's like, I need to kill Epidemius, right? I've got 9 artillery pieces in my army. I'm gonna snipe Epidemius and kill him. Where do I put my artillery to do that? Okay. And I come upstairs, and I was like, let's roll to see who gets sides. And we rolled, and I got the side I wanted to pick. So I went over, and I was saying to James, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I'm probably going to put Epidemius behind this building, which is on my right flank. My far right flank, there was a building, and I was like, I'm probably going to put Epidemius behind there, because there you can't see it. And James was like, yeah, don't worry. I've planned for that. So I was like, okay. And so we deployed, and he put his artillery down, and he had his artillery deployed prior to me putting Epidemius down. So I got to put Epidemius where I wanted based upon where he'd put his artillery. And when I put him down in the corner on the far right-hand side, James could still see me with a couple of his artillery pieces based upon how he deployed them. And I was thinking, balls. This is not good.
The old building tactic hasn't worked this time.
Well, haha. I was like, within 5 seconds, I had a brainwave. James had deployed the majority of his artillery, like 8 out of 9 pieces, on the left-hand side. His left flank, and some in the centre, which was only the short-range gobblers in the centre. And like a rock lobber. But I was thinking of deploying Epidemius on my right opposite him. All of a sudden I had a brainwave because he only had one goblin spear chucker on his right flank, my left flank. I put Epidemius in the left flank. So he could only be shot by that spear chucker, which was because of cover and stuff would need 6s. And all of his other artillery was out of range. And the only other artillery piece that was in range was a rock lobber, but that couldn't see him, so it could only indirect fire. And so when I put Epidemius there, instead of where James thought I was going to put him, James went, balls. He's like, I've really buggered this up. And I was like, yeah, I didn't think, and we measured out the ranges and we had to check the rule book, because how often is artillery out of range? And we were, and so we were like checking the rule book, and we were like figuring, it's this range, and so we measured it out, and I was like, right, I'm going to put him here, and you're only in range of 2 pieces, and one of them's going to need 6s, and the other one could only indirect fire him, and so they could never hit him. So it was like, great. And James was like, fuck. And he deployed his big and so there was, the only way he could get to Epidemius was with a chariot, a goblin wolf chariot, and his goblin hero and wolf. It's probably a good time for me to explain what was in James's army. So James had an orc war boss on boar with a 4 upward save. He had a level 4 shaman, savage orc shaman with shrunken head and fencer's blades. He had a level 2 night goblin with a dispel scroll. He had a Black Orc BSB with, I think, Enchanted Shield. He had a Goblin Hero on a wolf with, like, spear and stuff, and he had, like, a Charm Shield. He had 47 Savage Orc Biggins, which is a really scary unit. And that's where his Shaman, his Night Goblin, and his BSB went in. He had a unit of 10 Trolls, and that's what his War Boss went in. He had 3 Bolt Throwers, 2 Doom Divers, a unit of 5 Spiders with bows and a Banner and Musician, a Wolf Chariot, 2 Stone Throwers, and 2 Gobbers. I think this is a -7 comp list, but I think this is nigh on arguably one of the best Orc and Goblin armies you can make. Anything competitive wise. Someone's going to have to pull a really good army list out of their arse to compete with this. And James had won all his other games leading up to this. He'd played that Warriors of Chaos that you played, Luke Paxil, and he'd beaten that. He'd played like 3 Dark Elf armies with witches and cauldrons and Marathis, and he played an army with a magma dragon, and all this stuff, and he'd beaten all them. So he's a very good player, and I think James is one of the best players I've met ever. But his problem is that he's limited himself to Orcs and Goblins and Bretonnians. So he's only ever going to get so much success with those armies. Hopefully you'll finish painting this Bretonian soon and they'll come on the channel. But anyway, so this Orc Goblin army, I know he knows how to use it, but deployment was critical in this game, and he'd ballsed it up. But he was like, sod it, I'm going to give it a go, so on and so forth. So to protect Epidemius, I put down like some Nurglings to act as a screen. My center basically faced up against his center. So what happened was he got turn 1 and he tried shooting a couple of things and he just didn't do any damage. And it was like great, he had a misfire on one of his rock lobbers and that blew up, and then everything missed or didn't do any damage, and so I was like,
legendary goblin technology.
So I got off really light turn 1. I marched across the board and I moved my Furies in a position where they could charge into his other rock lobber in the next turn. My Soul Grinder, which was in my center left, had moved up to go up against his trolls. My big block was in the middle, and my Beast of Nurgle would just center in the middle of them, and my Rock Flies were on the right, opposite his big block of Savage Orcs. And how it turned out was I rolled for my magic in the turn 1, and I got the Dark Prince firsts, and that killed one of his gobbers. So I was like, oh, brilliant. That's another artillery piece gone.
He's down to 7 now.
He's down to 7. In his next turn, another one blew up. So I was like, that's 6. His trolls charged into my Soul Grinder, and his chariot charged into my Nurglings. And the Nurglings got destroyed by the chariot, and I was like, oh, shit. Wasn't expecting that. It went straight through, overran, and the Goblin on Wolf had just gone 18 inches a turn straight at Epidemius. So Epidemius is hiding in the corner, and he's got a Goblin on Wolf, a Goblin boss on Wolf, and a chariot chasing after him. But in the center, his trolls had charged my Soul Grinder, and I was like, okay. And he was like, I was like, right, so you're going to charge, so you're going to get +1 for charge, +1 for rank, and, maybe a couple of wounds. So, look, if I'm within range of my BSB, and I'm leash 9 because of my general, so I should be able to hold, and then if I hold, my big block's going to, charge into the trolls, and so on and so forth. So, what he did, James, was he decided to declare his war, which gives him +D3 combat res. In the turn he does it, and he moved his general into contact with my Soul Grinder, and so I was like, all right, well, you know what, his general's got a great weapon, so his general was strength 8 in the first round of combat, which is quite scary. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try and hit his general, okay, because the trolls are meaningless, and it's the same amount for me to hurt the trolls as it is to hurt the general. So I'm going to try and hit his general. And so I attacked his general and did 2 wounds on him. And he'd failed his ward saves and armor saves and stuff. And so I was like, great, his general's on 1 wound. I lost combat. He only rolled a 1 for his war. He failed to do any wounds with the trolls because the trolls are on 6s to wound. And the general just fluffed all his attacks. And I was like, wow, great. So I did 2 wounds. He's on charge and things. So it was drawn combat. I was like, wow, really lucky. In the next turn, I blocked his big block with my Plague Toads. And the next turn, so my turn 2, my Furies went into his other rock lobber. The Beast of Nurgle went through his center, to get, he'd blocked him off with his spiders, but I was like, right, I'll run his spiders and then I'll overrun into his backline. He'd expected his trolls to run through the soul grinder and then he could like reform, but it hadn't happened. My big block charged his trolls, and I was like, you know what? My great unclean one, the rot flies, are going to go into the front of the savage orcs, and my plague toads are going into the flank. Epidemius, you're going to run round here, so only the goblin can charge you and not the chariot. So, what happened combat wise was the Furies obviously killed the Rotlobber, overran into like the next war machine. So they're just running down the war machine back line now. The Beast of Nurgle obviously chewed up the spiders, and then they overran into his back line. What else was there? The combat with the trolls. Oh no, what was it? It was the combat with the big orc unit. So he didn't declare any challenges, and I didn't declare any challenges. And my great unclean one with his always strikes first sword went, I'm going to hit your BSB. And I just put all the attacks into the BSB and killed him. Because now I was like, his general's on 1 wound, his BSB's gone, the trolls have got really crap leadership, and this unit's frenzied. If I can get James taking leadership tests, where he doesn't have a reroll and he doesn't have leadership 9, I might be able to run around the board. The rot flies bounced off his unit. They got absolutely mint. So did the plague toads. And what it ended up was just my great unclean one. At the end of combat, it was just my great unclean one against this unit of savage orcs. But I'd killed his BSB. And then in the combat with his warlord and his trolls, my my big soul grinder was like, I'm going to hit your warlord again. And he killed him. I was like, holy crap. The soul grinders just smacked this guy down. I hardly did any wounds to the trolls, but because I had like 3 ranks, 2 banners, charged, wounds, all this stuff, I won on combat res. He no longer has his general. He no longer has his BSB. So the trolls are sat there on leadership troll, stubborn.
What is that, 4 or something?
It's like leadership 3 or 4, something like that. But this is why I was like picking those. Again, I've played James a lot. And we know our strengths and weaknesses, so I was like, I'm going to pick on his general, I'm going to pick on his BSB, get them out of the game. I got them out of the game. His trolls are now leadership rubbish. He failed his break test. I overran him. Trolls, the unit of 10 trolls, I'd hardly done any wounds to him, but they all disappear. My soul grinder goes into his back line. My unit reforms ready to face off against his savage orcs. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to win this game, because things are just working out for me. In his turn 3, the goblin charged the Epidemius. And that was like pretty much it. Epidemius survived, but he'd like taken a couple of wounds and so on and so forth. And but what happened was Epidemius was able to kill the goblin over a couple of rounds of combat.
Is Epidemius much of a fighter? I assume not.
He's strength 5, toughness 5 with 3 attacks, and he has poison on a 5 or a 6. He's got 4 wounds, and his Palanquin pumps out 6 strength 3 attacks. So he's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, for a hero. He's only 200 points as well, so he's pretty good. So he kills the goblin over a couple of rounds of combat. But he only had like 1 wound left. Right. And but what was I saying? So I basically was like winning combats across the board. My great unclean one had held against his savage orc biggins. So in his turn, he didn't really do anything, but he charged the chariot into Epidemius. So in goes the chariot, and I'm thinking, Epidemius has only got 1 wound left. This is going to hurt, right? And he rolled, he rolled his D6 impact hits, and he got the impact hits. And basically, he caused a wound on Epidemius, right? And I had 1 dice, and I was down to like -1 ward save. I'd like rolled like -1 ward save on the unit. And
Can I predict what's going to happen?
so yeah, I needed a 6 to save him. And guess what? I rolled the 6. And James cried. he's like, "Oh, what are you doing to me?" And it was just like, oh my god, it felt good, but it also felt bad at the same time. And then Epidemius like slapped down a chariot, and that was that. So I was like, Epidemius is going to live now. He's got nothing that's going to take him out. The backline got cleared up. The Savage Orcs tried to kill the Great Unclean One, but they just couldn't do any damage because they were on 6s to wound him. He did some damage and held combat. And then in my turn 4, I think it was, my big block charged his big block, but because of where the Great Unclean One was, it meant that there was only like a couple of guys clipping each other. These two big horde blocks, but there's only like 2 guys in base contact. And we rolled on the magic table, and it was the one where one of the enemy characters has to take a leadership test or die. And I was like, well, he's got no general and he's got no BSB. It appeared on his level 4 shaman with shrunken head, failed his leadership test, removed the model as a casualty, so his unit's now down to a 6-up ward save rather than the 5-up ward save. And basically, with the charge, 3 ranks, banner, he only had 2 ranks and a banner. He didn't cause any wounds. I caused a few wounds on him. He wasn't stubborn anymore. He was only leadership orc. He didn't have his BSB or general or anything, so that unit broke. I ran him down, and I think all he had left was his bolt thrower, which was on the far right hand side, and I just ignored that, and then that was it. And the game.
Have you heard that saying? How did you go bankrupt? 2 ways: gradually, then suddenly. That sounds a bit like that.
Yeah,
game.
yeah. It was. It didn't go his way at all. The game didn't go his way at all. But I was quite confident when I'd got the charges that I'd wanted off that I was going to win, probably even without Epidemius. So even when I rolled that 6 for Epidemius to live, I was like, I think the game's over anyway.
It's just the final insults
kind of thing, yeah. And it was so I was able to sweep up his whole army minus a bolt thrower, which is like 35 points, and he got my plague toads and my rot flies, which is like 360 points or something. So it was a really big win, and I felt bad for kind of winning that way, and especially against a good friend. So I can't say the game was enjoyable. It was nice to win, but it was it was just two guys just going for it, and I just happened to win. So with that win, 20-0 added on to the end, it meant that I went on to win the tournament.
Can we reveal that now?
Because
we've never mentioned it before.
No, so
you actually won Triple Crown.
I actually won Triple Crown on my 3rd attempt. So the first time I came 7th. The second time I went, I came 5th. And then I dropped High Elves. I'd taken High Elves first 2 times, took Demons. And knowing that I could possibly face it up against High Elves. And I won. And it was crazy because it wasn't what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting to play one of my closest friends in the final game. I wasn't expecting to get 5 wins, which was really good for me. And I think it was also the first time a Highlander plus comp had ever won. I think it's the first time Highlanders ever won.
Are you just trying to drop in here that you also won another certificate for the Highlander?
Well, yeah, so there was a few certificates that were handed out.
Not too many people, though.
No, there wasn't too many people. So there was Best Sportsman Award. There was Best Painted. there was the top 3, and there was Highlander. So I got Highlander because obviously my army was Highlander, and I'd done the best Highlander, and I also won. And as I said, I think that's the first time that's happened. So, yeah, it was good. There was obviously some luck involved. A fair deal at some points, but
And best painted and third place went to the same person.
yeah,
So
Callum, yeah. But it was
not that I'm bitter that I didn't get any certificates at all, but if you could just spread the field out a bit next year for like best 12th placed army that's high elves, that would be quite good.
Well, yeah, I think there's some tournaments like Cardiff that are doing like the best of each race. Yeah, so if you've been the best high elf player, then you might get something. But
I wasn't even the best high elf player. I was the second best. I missed best high elf player by 3 points. Which is not bad. I'll take that.
Well, overall, I think I got 85 gaming points out of a possible 100, which I'm quite happy about. And then once you add up all the points, I think I was 10 points ahead of second place. So I was quite obviously ecstatic with the result. Done extremely well. Second place went to Matt, in his demons, and third place went to Callum. And as I was saying, I was obviously lucky at some points, and but it was a real grind against some really strong players. So I had to play the guy who came second. I had to play the guy who came third. I had to play the guy who came sixth. And James, he'd gone from being joint first on table 1 in the last game, but with that loss, he went down to 9th, I think, which I felt really bad about because I don't think he deserved a 9th place finish. I think he deserved higher, but
yeah, there's only 3 points between me and him.
Yeah, so it was really close in that like part of the thing, but I had to beat 4 top 10 finishers, and Liam Howie, who had played in game 1, was further down the table. But after game 1, I had to beat the guy who came third, and I had to beat the guy who came second to get it. So it was a really hard fought grind.
What do you think of the undeniable fact that had fate been different and we'd have played in the second game, you wouldn't have won this tournament?
Well, how do you feel that you got 20-0'd by demons?
I'm fine with it because it was a different demon army.
That I could have possibly have done the same thing to you.
Well, we'll never know.
Well, we won't, because I've played my demon army a lot over the last couple of years, and over lockdown, and on the channel especially, and practicing for the tournament. And after playing against demons twice, I was like, you know what, I don't want to use my Nurgle demon army again. So it is going to be sat on the shelf.
What's going to Cardiff? Are you going to Cardiff?
I'm not going to Cardiff, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think it's going to Cardiff.
But no, it will be. It's going to be put on the shelf, and it will gather dust for a period of time. Proudly, though, with its 2 certificates. But yeah, I'd have to say it was a really good tournament, really well run. For those who don't know, the Triple Crown guys actually run multiple events and tournaments throughout the year. So they've got an Albion event going on, which is more of a narrative campaign event weekend. That's happening in October, November. But if you check out Triple Crown Wargaming, you'll be able to see all their events on there. And then next year, I think they're going to be holding a Triple Crown tournament in April, and then another tournament in July. So watch out for them. And I will be trying to attend as many of them as possible, because they are well-run tournaments, and they know what they're doing, and the people who go to them are really nice people. So, but I won't be taking my demons. I won't be taking Nurgle demons. I might take a different god, a different god next time.
Beastmen, you heard it here first.
Well, my friends challenged me. They challenged me with. I had a challenge for the weekend, and then there was another challenge they gave me. So the challenge for the weekend was to cast my signature spell at least once. I never cast it over the whole weekend.
That's the stream of corruption.
Yeah, Stream of Corruption. It's a flamer template. Yeah. I didn't cast it once over the whole weekend. Over 5 games, I was like, never casted that. It's crap. Well, it's not crap. I just never got in a situation where it was useful. And the other challenge they've given me is they've challenged me to do well with, which is, they said win, but I'm changing it to do well with either Tomb Kings or Beastmen. I'm probably gonna expand that to Bretonians maybe as well, because Beastmen weren't represented and Bretonians weren't represented, and Tomb Kings are just a hard army to win with. So I think I'm going to be delving into those armies next. With my winnings, I actually went out and bought some more bits for my Tomb King army. So I have the makings of a Tomb King army.
So you actually spent £1,000 on Tomb King?
1,000. Well, you'd need to spend £1,000 on Tomb Kings to get about 500 points. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's actually more accurate than I thought for that joke.
But no, I've got a nice Tomb King army on the way. So I need to get that made and painted and whatnot. And we can't have Callum Hyam winning best painted again, so I might actually have to put some effort in.
Are you going to go for winning everything next time?
Winning, yeah. So I'm going to win best sportsman, best painted, Highlander. Actually, I won't win Highlander next time. The objective is to win an award I haven't won. How about that? So either best painted or best sportsman.
Well, my objective is to win it.
Well,
and 20-0 everything.
Well, it's quite difficult, isn't it, though, to 20-0 someone, isn't it? If you think about it, your games you played, it's quite hard to 20-0 someone.
Well, if I say it was fine, then it sort of says that when I was 20-0, that was nothing. So I'm in a bit of a bind here. So yeah, it's really, really difficult to 20-0 someone.
But the one question I'm going to ask is, having played with the army you played with, would you change anything in your army list for the next tournament?
I think we were discussing this on the group chat. That what I realised was, we discussed it last episode. My BSB has a Talisman of Preservation and an Enchanted Shield, and I can't think why I gave him that, because there's no waste of points. There's absolutely no purpose for that.
An eagle for that. Oh no, you've got too many rare points.
Too many rare points. So I am going to replace it with something else. It's either going to be the Banner of Eternal. It's open list for Cardiff, I think. So I'll just say it. It's either going to be Rampage as standard or Banner of Eternal Flame.
Rampage as standard, give him Swiss Stride?
It means you can re-roll failed charges.
Re-roll failed charges?
Yeah.
That's, well, in that game you talk about with Luke, that would have been really useful.
That if I had that then, that could have changed everything.
I'd say Rampage is standard.
Yeah, I think if the game comes up where regen's in it, that the Flame Banner is going to be useful every turn you're in combat. But if that never happens, it's never going to be useful. Whereas that, I failed it by one. Reroll in. The White Lions are away. That's what I want. So I think I'm going to change it to that. Because really, the Banner Bearer, he's not that vital. The stubborn 10 on Alariel's leadership, as long as she's alive, they can probably take the loss of the BSB.
Yeah, just get him into combat. Once you're in there, you're fine.
Yeah, it's finesse. But I wouldn't change anything else about the army. I really, really enjoyed playing the army. It's really nice to have them fully painted. And I'm, as previous viewers may know, I'm quite partial to the High Elves, and I like playing fluff. No, don't laugh at me for that. I like playing lower powered lists, but I also like taking really, really on paper strong lists and having them fight tournament quality lists as well.
Mm.
So I wouldn't change. That's the only change I'd make. I really, really enjoyed playing my high elves. It's probably the most fun I've had playing them. I can remember.
Wow, that's great though. The fact that you're only considering changing the magical items on one character means that you're obviously very happy.
That's just another benefit of. I didn't play test it as much as I would have liked. So I just made the big changes from the previous list that we talked about last time. But now that you're thinking, well, I quite like being at that stage with it where it's like, now it can be really point efficient. What is this talisman of preservation doing? It's a waste of points. So get rid of that and get something in that's going to be actually having the experience of what can go wrong. Here's something that can mitigate it. So I'm quite enjoying that experience of it as well.
Nice.
Well, you change your entire army, wouldn't you?
I'm dropping the whole thing. The whole thing's getting dropped. Would I change anything in that list? Well, if you listen to the Triple Crown guys tournament review when they talked about the top 3 army lists, they were right. The nail was on the head with my army. There is a lot of suboptimal things. The Great Unclean One, the Soul Grinder, the Plague Toads, probably the only like suboptimal thing. Maybe Nurglings at a push. So there's a lot of points. There's nearly 1,200 points in suboptimal units. And I could take better units. I could take Kairos. I could, rather than the Great Unclean One. I could take Skull Cannons. I could make that the filthiest, dirtiest army and still keep it Highlander. But I wanted to keep it themed. I wanted to keep it Highlander, and I wanted to keep it a plus comp list. And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't think there's a better way of doing it. Unless you went the way I did it. So, for a
Mission accomplished then.
For the plus one, exactly. It was, I want to do well with Highlander and a positive comp list. This is the best list I could think of for that, and it did the job. So I can't complain. I can't complain at all. But yeah. So when are we going to get you on the channel? Once you stop judging me.
I've got a fully painted army now, as required, as mandated.
It is
a year ago.
If people want to come on the channel, you have to have a fully painted army.
Come on, I might have to wear a bag over my head to keep the mystery of who I am.
We can because
blur it out.
Because you celebrity status, we might have to blur you out.
I could wear aviators, couldn't I?
You definitely could.
No, definitely. Come on. I would like to play your demon list, but if that's being retired, then pick something else.
You can play one of my demon lists.
One of your demon lists. Because the only army that is fully painted is the tournament army. There are 3,000 points of high elves sitting on my desk, looking at me, saying, "You really must get these painted," but it's not happened as yet. I'm still in tournament mode. When all these tournaments are over, I'll get back to painting them properly. But for now, it's the tournament list on nothing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But thank you everyone who has sat through and listened to us. This is nearly pushing 2 hours, I'd say. This podcast.
Maybe some editing on this.
But
just cut your bits out. My bits are always more interesting.
Cut me out. Cut myself out.
Your own channel.
But thank you everyone for listening. Please like and subscribe to Toy Soldier Tales. All your likes, all your subs really help us out. And it gives me the momentum to try and make content for you. I do have a battle report filmed. I just haven't edited it, but I'm hoping to edit that and release that soon. It just takes time. But where can they find you on social media, Mark?
I am on at Splitfire Gaming 1 because I couldn't get that. I'm on Splitfire_Gaming1 on Instagram, and I am on, if you search Splitfire Gaming on YouTube. I'm now the first thing that comes up, so
yeah, great.
Imagine that.
Well, for those again, go over to Mark's podcast Spitfire Gaming on YouTube and listen to that. I've been on there a few times now talking about Warhammer Fantasy.
Many times.
And always have fun. So if you want to go and listen to some Warhammer Fantasy, check out Mark's podcast. Look for the ones that say Warhammer Fantasy, because there are some 40k ones on there. So
I got that. Who was it? Was it Liam that was saying, yeah, he does some 40k ones which are trash, but now he's doing the fantasy ones, so I'm listening to it. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah. But thanks everyone. Thanks Mark. Thanks to everyone at the Triple Crown for running the tournament. Thanks to all my opponents. And we'll catch you all next time.
See you later.